Hi. Tonight's a really special night. It was 5 years ago the Intercept was started. Really inspiring story. It was a young man with a dream. That man's name was Pierre Omidyar. He had youth, a dream, and $1 billion or $2 from PayPal. And you know what he did that a lot of people think about doing but don't? He gave $250 million to create a news outlet. From that was humble beginnings came the Intercept. First Look Media, parent company. Hey, dog, calm down.
Lou.
Oh, God, dog, no.
Very excited about this.
Not doing this. No, we're celebrating the Intercept.
Louis, come here.
Glenn Greenwald and Laura Poitras.
It's not about you tonight, Louis.
Two young, up-and-coming media figures, journalists, as you may, both approached by Edward Snowden a couple of years prior to this. One of them says, no, go away, not interested. The other one says, oh, wow, this is clearly important. We should definitely run with this. Guess which one got barred from the meeting last month on determining the future of the Snowden archive? It was Laura Poitras. She got barred. So Laura Poitras, of course, last month sent me a bunch of stuff to leak. Emails, internal emails, her full account of how this went down. Stuff indicating that everything about this closure of the Snowden archive, which you may or may not have heard of because it's not on the internet's website. Instead, it was reported, brought to attention by Glenn Greenwald's statement about it, which frankly doesn't make a great deal of sense when you've seen the emails that we leaked a couple weeks ago. And you can see those, I don't know, on the internet. No, I'm kidding. If you look up, if you haven't seen it, probably should have linked to it. Huh? Google why the Intercept really closed down the Snowden archive, and you'll find all these things. But if you stick around, I'll be reading for some of them. In fact, I'll be doing dramatic readings of certain portions, including the preamble to the Snowden document NDA, which was also leaked. And
Want me to pour you a drink?
yeah, why not?
It's a party.
It's a party. Well, no, there's some coffee for now. I'll have some wine in a bit. I have a cup here if you want to just pour me them. Well, let's get started. Let's get this party kicking. What should we start with? First, let me tell you what we have coming up before we begin the event. We've got some great things planned for tonight. We're going to be interrupted by this dog over and over again whenever he sees a civilian walking outside because he's a little, come here. He's a little fascist. That's right. But then later on, we're going to burn my National Magazine Award that I won from prison for the Intercept.
I love fire.
Feels fire. We're gonna burn stuff. We're still making the final decision on what we're gonna burn it in. We've got several interesting urns and bullshit around here that she's bought from. Dog, why are you struggling?
They're
Like
family
to go
heirlooms.
camera.
They're family heirlooms.
We're gonna burn that in protest of them closing the archive, but also in protest of a lot of other things that the Intercept, frankly, needs to, I think, either stop doing or explain why they did it, or fill in the blanks. Without giving too much away, one of those things they should talk about is Sam Biddle and something he got tricked into doing back in 2012. It kind of impacted a lot of whistleblowers, a lot of activists, a lot of people who were about to go to prison. Whoa, wait, come on, okay, fine, I'll put you down. Here, Jesus Christ. Dog loves his freedom. John Cook, first editor at the Intercept. I was surprised to learn from prison before I started writing for the Intercept that John Cook had been their first editor. They got him straight from Gawker. Now, there's a number of reasons why that's fucked up. A number of reasons. We'll get into that later. You know what? We all have our favorite grievance against the Intercept. But there's a guy tonight who has blessed us with a very special grievance. This is one I think it kind of outdoes most of the ones I have. And I had to have a lot of heavy editing by a couple of editors who should not be editors. And but our friend John Kiriakou, the one person who went to prison for the.
Yes,
there's no rush.
Don't lick that, Louis.
Yeah, don't lick the quotes, dog. Sorry. John Kiriakou, one person who went to prison for the U.S.'s torture program. He went to prison because he leaked it, and I would say, because he leaked it to the wrong guy. Who is that wrong guy? We'll find out in a little bit. We're gonna read a quote he gave us tonight. It's a nice little quote that kind of encapsulates a lot of these issues. Baby, I'm trying to talk. God. And also, can I have some coffee, please?
Huh?
Can I have some coffee, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. What else are we gonna do? Oh yeah, so we're gonna do that. We're gonna read a few things. We're gonna read some excerpts. Probably gonna drop a few more documents that I haven't gotten around to dropping, and we might listen to some recordings. We'll see. I don't have any recordings here about the Intercept, but I do have some pretty solid Rage Against the Machine tracks. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna do that. All right, so let's get started. Whatever that would mean. Oh, wait, what's this behind me? Oh, what the fuck is that? Holy shit, look at that. Badass frame, for one thing. It says here this is a National Magazine Award presented to The Intercept. And then Barry Brown writer. For editorial excellence in the category of columns and commentary. That's right, I beat the fuck out of Time Magazine and New Yorker. Fucking bitches. Presented by the American Society of Magazine Editors. I received this award, it was received for me on stage by Betsy Reed, one of the editors of The Intercept, and one of the small number of people who knows exactly why The Intercept closed the Snowden archive. One of the small numbers of people involved in that decision, as shown by the internal emails that we're going to go over a little later. I didn't know much about her until recently. You know, she was one of two editors that was editing my columns. Not always to great effect. I dealt with Roger Hodge mostly. But one thing I did know about her, I'll tell you this. One thing I did know about her is that when I tried to write again about Romos Coin, which is a sophisticated data mining and surveillance and propaganda thingamajig apparatus overseen by the U.S. government on behalf of by a number of companies, including Northrop Grumman in the past, and which was named by Aaron Barr, the disgraced H.B. Gary Federal CEO, who us anonymous folks back in the day, back when I was running with those kids, got a big conflict with, which is what led to the exposure of a number of things, including the Team Themis conspiracy, a vastly indefensible conspiracy against democracy that targeted journalists, even the children of labor leaders, and which did this long in Pallinger. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, I tried to write about that shit again, and Betsy Reed and Roger Hodge decided that I couldn't because I was wrong. They hadn't seen the emails in question, and I'd already written about it for The Guardian years before, but we're going to read that later. We're going to read them explaining to me about the intelligence contracting industry that I was in prison over. We're going to do that in a bit. It's all gold, folks. No squibs in this show. Oh, yo. Oh, shit. Is that a really I'm looking for the right term. Is that a extraordinarily decisive quote from our friend John Kiriakou, who provided it to us earlier today? I think it might be. Let's introduce Tess. Therese Wright. Everybody.
I got dressed up in case I got invited to the event, but
yeah, we got to get on both camera A and camera B. You know
camera 1, camera 2, camera 1. Is that from Wayne's World?
I don't know. You tell me. You're the one starting the quote. Speaking of quotes, we got our quote from our great friend John Kiriakou over this board. You want to go ahead and read it now, or do you want to?
I can't read it like this.
Let's do it. Okay, well, I'll read it.
You can read it.
I'll read it. Let me get it. Let's see. See what John Kiriakou, our friend. He's on the Pursuance Board of Directors. Wonderful guy. Shout out.
It's your boy.
It's our boy. He's also on the Process Congress. That's hasn't really been announced yet, but it's going to be awesome. Trust me. There's John Kiriakou. Be careful with the chairs and the dogs. Okay, here we go. Whoa, it's hard to be careful.
Looks like I have no.
All right, let's read it. If the Intercept were serious about journalism, adversarial or otherwise, about truth or about accountability, it would fire Matthew Cole today. No other so-called journalist, let's do a close-up with this camera. No other so-called journalist has done more to ruin the lives of whistleblowers across America. Just ask reality winner, Terry Albury, or me. If there were any accountability at the Intercept, Matthew Cole would be in the unemployment line. That's John Kiriakou.
And us. And everyone with a ability to critically.
It's him saying it, though. So that's good stuff. You just leave that in the.
And he specifically brought this up.
People can look at.
Just put it on the chair.
This is John Kiriakou's contribution to evening. We wish him well.
I'm gonna put it on that chair. So.
He's one of a number of us who have gone to prison and written from prison about prison misconduct and been retaliated against for it, and gotten out and had to deal with probation and all that. And yeah, good guy.
We're gonna get this tattooed on our bodies.
That's not bad. So, should move on to next. You know what? I'm gonna do a reading myself. That got me in the mood. You know, let's do that Snowden NDA.
There, look how perfect.
I love that Snowden NDA. You know what? Oh, fuck, my camera's falling. Maybe I should. Sorry, camera one. We got Twitter and Facebook on the live streams here, and you're both equally important to me. But I think there's more media people on the Twitter. So
Facebook for the millennials.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Scum. I guess that's still.
Hey, bud.
Operating properly. Fuck, I don't know. We ought to be different. Ha! Right, so we're gonna read real quick from. We're not gonna go into the whole nuts and bolts of the picture.
You know, people and what did you say? People in prison shave and have some standard of care still. I think that's really important.
Well, I most of them.
I mean, you know, you didn't look like growing a beard. Prisoners take care of their facial hair. They have that standard still, you know. Grooming.
Yeah, he won't trust me.
Huh?
Person who doesn't shave in an embassy doesn't shave in prison. I'll tell you that. What are we pulling up here? Oh, here we go. Just gonna read real briefly from the email that CEO, Intercept as a CEO, which is I guess is fine, you know, as it were. But he talks like a CEO too. Let's see what he wrote to the Intercept, which he refers to as team. Last month, upon the occasion of the layoffs of the entire research team and the closure of the Snowden archive. Where are we here? And this is CEO Michael Bloom on the 13th. That's a month and 3 days ago. Assuming a month is actually a unit of time, which I guess it's not because it can vary by days. Team, I'm writing to let you know about some important changes taking place today, which unfortunately results in our parting ways with some of our talented colleagues, representing 4% of our staff across FLN, that's First Look Media. We don't take these decisions lightly, but as an important step to better align ourselves operationally for the future. That's a whole sentence, period. Still, it impacts members of the First Look Media family, and that is hard. We all know each other, work shoulder to shoulder, and are dedicated to the same ideals. To those leaving, it is even harder. That's true. It is harder to get fired than not be fired. You'll be greatly missed, and we thank you for all your hard work and many contributions. As part of this reorganization, we will continue to invest significantly in all key areas across the company and focus sharply on our world-class journalism, supporting creators, filmmakers, and storytellers. Storytellers is my favorite part. Growing our audiences, expanding into new platforms, and producing even more premium programming. Premium programming is the word I always want to hear.
Real quick, big look.
Yes.
Is he in the?
I hope so.
I hope they can see him. This is his favorite toy.
I'm confused as to where that just came up. Here.
This is your baby.
Okay.
This is your baby.
Okay. I wonder if I do this as a
I have a stand.
People see. Oh, I have a stand too on the phone. I just realized it existed right now.
Yeah, I got that for you.
Well, this will be fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
Lay down. Good job.
I'm incredibly proud of what we've accomplished. This is again, this is Bloom speaking. This is CEO Michael Bloom. Sounds like a CEO, doesn't it?
No.
I'm incredibly proud of what we've accomplished over the last few years, but even more excited about our road ahead. Okay. We'll be having a town hall later this month where we can talk more about our future plans. Now let me cut in right here. The town hall, if I'm thinking correct, same event, which did indeed occur, which to that credit. People submitted their questions in writing at the request and the decision of the editors and Michael Bloom and all them, because that way it was easier to control the proceedings. And they also blocked Laura Poitras from coming to the meeting. That also made it easier to control the proceedings. That's cool.
Slack.
Last sentence here in Michael Bloom's email to everybody. As always, I remain grateful for your dedication to our company and our mission. Mike. Good stuff. So there you go. There you have it. And then what we had here, we had Laura Poitras replying with rather angrily. As she explains here and there, Snowden was not informed. She herself had to inform Snowden. She had to call him and apologize that this was done without a heads-up consultation. Not just, not involving him, but not involving her. She was one of two people who came onto the Intercept when it started with a copy of the whole Snowden archive. Thank God she still has one. Unfortunately, there's a lot of ins and outs, difficulties that one might not expect readily from dealing with an archive of that sort, especially if the leaker, in this case Snowden, has stipulated certain frameworks for going through it. Obviously, Snowden did not want the entire thing dumped, and that's his decision. Otherwise, it'd be a lot easier to deal, but he wanted it done in a more, the kind of way that the Intercept was set up to do. Money, research team, protocols, all that, in conjunction with the larger journalism mission. Something not just equipped to reveal things, but to analyze them and to make sure that they come into play. Which brings me to Glenn Greenwald's statements as to why they closed the Snowden archive down. I pulled it up here so I can read it straight up, but let me just summarize it for you. Greenwald said, just like Michael Bloom here said, that it's a budget issue. That they were constrained by budgetary reasons from continuing to have this research team that oversees the archive and the archive itself, which is terrible. Furthermore, he noted last month in the brief, single statement that has been made to the public about this decision. And the other reason why they're not continuing work on the Snowden archive is that no other outlets are. The other outlets have parts of the archive. They have portions of it. And they're not really doing work on it anymore. They're not really pursuing that story. Now, that's something I hate to hear from someone who has made $500,000 a year for the last several years on the premise that this outlet was going to be different. It's something I hate to hear as somebody who has struggled over the years to get leaks and to get information, even to get articles that I've moved from raw material to the Guardian, where the fuck, and to get them attention, to get them focused upon. It really pains me as someone who in 2011 sent Glenn Greenwald a lot of information, including in the days after it turned out that he was being targeted by this wacky consortium of intelligence contracting firms, HP Gary, Palantir, Berico, In-Game Systems. Two of those firms were later listed on my search warrant when I was raided on March 6, 2012. What my case is about, in fact. Back then, Greenwald was not, it seems to me, as conscientious as he could have been about following up on these stories, following up on the information that was yielded in that hack of H.P. Gary, the one that revealed the conspiracy against him, which he wrote about in Salon back then. Was not conscientious about following up on the things that we spent a year afterwards going through, researching, compiling for the public, things that we put up on our website, echelon2.org, which was listed on my search warrant as well. In fact, let me read you an email that I sent to Glenn, who I had some exchanges with over the past 2 years by that point. Greenwald. This is an email I sent about a month after I was raided by the FBI in March 2012. Thanks for the links.
Can I just rep this shirt real quick?
No. Oh yeah, okay, come do it while yeah, come rep it. I'm looking. I gotta look up this. There we go.
What shirt is this? You gave me this shirt. It's one of the first shirts you gave me in a relationship.
It wasn't mine to give. It was given to me. I didn't make that shirt, obviously. That was a gift.
Do you see it in the back?
They can see it on one thing. It should be backwards, one way it's forward, but it says "Inmate of Greatest Concern," Barry Brown. That's commemorating. I was listed as an inmate of greatest concern on this secret SIS file at the medium security prison I was at.
Shout out to the prison for this shirt. I like it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that.
I could model the boxers too.
Yeah, go for it.
No, I'm good.
Bring them out. Let me read to you what I wrote to Glenn Greenwald a month after my raid in March. So, a month after my raid, I wrote an article for The Guardian. The article recapped some of the stuff that we'd already put out, me and Project PM and Anonymous and crowdsourced sort of network that spent, just to clarify that question, was asking me to let me keep it. That's not actually a prison shirt. That was a gift from Brizio Vargas, who had it made for me and sent it in, along with another one, the Cobra Commander shirt that I wear sometimes.
Ooh, I like that. I want that one.
Yeah, that one's also nice.
This
I
one's
like
pretty
that too.
Piss.
Yeah, it's like this. What was it? Oh yes, I was raided by the FBI, and the FBI warrant, as made public by Michael Hastings, who published it at BuzzFeed, which apparently is like something like the dark net, because no journalists tended to have difficulties finding it after that. Yes.
Hastings info.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm investigating.
Yes.
It's important.
No one does, trust me. So I wrote an article, again, recapping the very things I was being raided over, the very things listed in my search warrant, the very things that a lot of people had risked prison over, so they got a prison over HB Gary hack and the subsequent investigation. And I wrote to him this on April 20th, 2012, to Glenn Rowe. I wrote, "Not sure if you get these emails, but there's been another instance in which a journalist and an editor at USA Today were hit by an online disinfo campaign by what are almost certainly intelligence contractors. In this case, the journalist had called the contractors with questions, provoking the response. The problem isn't getting any better. If you haven't read about it, I did an op-ed for The Guardian here that also notes how Palantir rehired Matthew Steckman, and thus didn't really mean that apology they gave to you." And I put a link to the Guardian article. This case, Matthew Steckman was the engineer, as they call him, at Palantir, who was most directly involved in the Team Demas conspiracy against Glenn Greenwald and against other journalists and against Code Pink, Stop the Chamber, WikiLeaks' donors, a bunch of journalists, including one at New York Times, who were deemed to be too supportive of transparency and that kind of thing. So I was hoping to kind of, remind Greenwald that, hey, remember when you were targeted a year ago? And that was foiled by my buddies there in Anonymous, and we pursued these guys very closely. Here's another journalist, an editor, being targeted by some of the same tactics that were planned for you. Take a look. That was kind of the subtext there. As you'll know, I didn't say anything about my raid. Didn't say, hey, help, I'm going to prison over a lot of this stuff. By this point, it had become clear that this wasn't the kind of thing that you bothered asking Greenwald about. He's got his own priorities. But he did respond to this email. About 3 days later, he writes, "Hey, Barrett, I saw that story. I definitely intend to write something about it this week. Reading your Guardian piece now." And I wrote back to him, "Glad to hear it. If you have any questions about any of these things, which I've been looking into with some journalists and other assorted contacts via my little group Project PM since last year, don't hesitate to ask. You can also see the wiki we've set up to disseminate some of what's been learned." And I give him the link to wikiechelon2.org again, listed on my search warrant a month prior. And then I write, "Please look into persona management in particular. It's something that needs to be brought to general attention at some point, and I'm going to have a difficult time haranguing people about the issue from prison." And Never heard from Grimwald again up until a couple of years later. Or over a year later. Persona management, the thing I mentioned in the email, something that didn't come up very often. You'll hear the term. Back then, it was had come out of these H.B. Gary emails. I remember H.B. Gary was the firm that we were most intensely focused upon, showing that the U.S. government, the U.S. military, was encouraging intelligence contractors, these private spook firms, to create and improve software intended to allow a single person to control some huge number of fake people online for the purposes of surveillance, infiltration, manufacturing events, discrediting people, the kind of things that were being done back then to journalists and activists, and still are being done today, probably more robustly. As it happens, persona management, which people kind of forgot about over the next few years, popped up again in the last election. A company called Side Group in Israel uses what they refer to as avatars, which are fake online people, very much like a persona management apparatus that we discovered back then. Which is described in a number of what do you call them, patents, information, sort of requests for proposals by the U.S. Air Force, emails to and from intelligence contractors discussing these things back then.
I managed to keep it.
Well, it's a valuable skill for someone who falls over all the time. That's incredible.
Shout out to my best friend Joe Fionda. BFFs for L. He is. Just want to say hi to him.
Good. Oh, thank you.
F is for friends.
So persona management came up again in the last election, except no one knows it because the New Yorker and the New York Times, which have were tipped off to this company that was involved in the U.S. election and was first offering a package to the Trump campaign to manipulate delegates to the RNC and to do other various things in the general election. They turned that down formally. Later, the CEO of the company, who's former Mossad, bragged that he had went ahead and done their thing anyway, since he was ideologically and I suppose pragmatically in favor of Trump winning. It's the exact same thing in persona management. The thing that was discussed, not just by us, we fleshed it out. The crowdsourced people, a guy at Daily Kos discovered it. My group, Project PN, was anonymous. We fleshed it out. The Guardian did a little bit of legwork on there.
Let's use our nicest words, please. Let's use our nice
Don't
words.
worry.
Just be a nice friend.
Persona management can only go so far. And even though the New York Times and New Yorker doesn't know what it's called and thinks they've discovered some new crazy thing, 3 or 4 years from now, next time it appears and used in an election, maybe some other outlet will say, hey, should we look and see if this is like an actual thing that's been around for a while and we can maybe get more information on? Maybe that people went to prison for.
That's my boy.
So there's always hope. I'm just kidding.
It's okay to be a dog.
Telling you next is a dog.
Well, Louis okay with violence if necessary.
Great story by her uncle, actually. I guess that's what it would be. What's his name? Illegitimate son of Frank Sinatra.
My father's.
No, not your father, though, but the guy who writes for New Yorker, who is supposedly Woody Allen's. Ronan Farrow, yeah. Ronan Farrow has a long piece on it. It's a great piece. Yeah. Term persona management doesn't quite come up.
Okay. Mommy here. Yeah, run it.
There's all kinds of grievances of that nature I could point out. One of which, again, is that Romos Coin, another program involving a lot of the same data mining capabilities, and 2 of the same firms, Palantir and Archimedes, that would later be caught data mining
Your baby?
information of U.S. voters from Facebook for the 2016 election to win for Trump.
In the corner.
This one. Same companies. Warned Glenn Greenwald about these companies, about Romos Coin in 2011. Really wasted my time. And then later tried to get the Intercept right about it again when I was still in prison. In my last column, I actually ran for them. But Roger Hodge and Betsy Reed were convinced that the discussions that I was referring to in my article, an article on a subject I already written about for The Guardian, mind you.
They're your friends.
Keep that in mind. That I misunderstood, that these contractors, they were just hustling to get business and they were just bragging and all that. I explained to them that these were emails not to other digital customers, their emails to each other, and to Apple and Google, setting up those meetings. This is all kind of inside baseball. It doesn't matter. I've written about it. You can see it in the leaks. That little why the Intercept really closed down the Snowden archive thing I put up. Has those excerpts there. One of the most extraordinary things that I've ever seen as a journalist. It's not the most extraordinary. I've seen something worse, but pretty extraordinary for an outlet that's supposed to be the one that's going to handle all of the surveillance coverage. Nor did they learn any lessons from it, because one of those 7 people, Betsy Reed, who couldn't quite understand what those emails meant and couldn't quite understand that it might be worthwhile to look at the emails before telling me what they mean, was one of the people involved, even in the vanilla official version presented by Glenn Greenwald in shutting down the Snowden archive. Betsy Reed and Roger Hodge and Glenn Greenwald, all 3 of these people are people who are documented to have missed important stories on this same subject. That's not even counting the time Glenn Greenwald didn't respond with any interest to Snowden, which is something I understand, because one gets a lot of inquiries and they kind of sound cryptic, and it's hard to tell which ones are going to be huge stories and which ones aren't. But he sure as hell missed the opportunity when 2011, when he had, as someone who more than anyone else in the world should have understood by that point that these companies were dangerous and deleterious. Just was not interested after that. Just didn't really take much interest in these companies.
Maybe I feel bad I erased those names.
What
The
names?
journalists you're prescribed.
Oh, I remember what show they are.
Okay.
She erased my list of prescribed journalists that I've banned from practicing journalism.
I figure you would.
But I remember, I know them all by heart. Trust me, I was just writing them down for fun. Let's move on. We've read some cute things from leaks document from Michael Bloom, the CEO of First Look. We've read a little bit of exchanges from Glenn Greenwald showing his incompetence to make these kind of decisions, and also is not a hugely, I don't want to say he's not a decent person. He's just
Can you
a
play the
model.
Adrian Chin recording? I'm obsessed.
It's not really obsessed. It's not really. Oh, well, actually, you know what? It is
I'm
actually.
obsessed
It
with
is
it.
because John Cook was the first out of the Intercept. You know what? We will play that recording in a second. It's gonna be fun. Just a reminder, we're gonna be breaking this out of the frame here and burning it out of spite. But it's all for charity.
Thanks for the invite. Anyone that's there at the event that wants to
No
live
one's there
stream-
at the event.
that wants to FaceTime with Barrett, so you can say hey.
No one's
Hey,
there.
bud.
Wants to-
Hey,
We actually have a friend at the events, DJ Spooky. He's a
Hey,
good guy, and
He's doing his job.
he's doing his job, yeah. Got no problem with that. So tonight, Intercept is having a party.
Oh yeah, what's it for?
5 years of fearless and adversarial journalism.
Like transparency.
But we're shutting this down. But we're still transparent. I'm gonna block Barrett Brown on Twitter.
No, WikiLeaks did that.
I know, because they're
None of them would block me.
transparency too.
That's what Assange was doing in the days before he was
XOXO
arrested. He was literally
Gossip Girl.
ordering them to block me on Twitter. I mean, yeah.
XOXO gossip.
A lot of bad decisions. I know, I've made many of them myself. What should we move to next? I want to do a dramatic reading real briefly, just of the preamble.
Recording.
No, we're going to do that, but I'm going to do it quite now because I don't know why. Obviously, we have the Adrian Chin recording, but how am I going to do it unless you bring your phone over here and play it on there, because the recording is output and all this on these, you see? So if you can put your phone on the Adrian Chin recording and bring it over here, we will
Where is the
do.
recording at?
If you just search Adrian Chin on YouTube, it's the third thing that pops up.
Really?
That's right. So there's 2012.
Let's do that.
Adrian Chin is a New York Times contributor, former New Yorker staff writer. Got a start at Gawker, and worked with John Cook very closely for quite a while, a couple of years. And John Cook was his editor. Written a lot since Gawker, written for The Nation, written for
Ooh, here it
The New Yorker, written for New York Times.
Can you see with mommy? Can you see next to mommy?
But the piece of his that I remember best
Okay, can I play it?
In a second. No. Right to the beginning. And I'll explain. The guy's been very successful. Adrian Chin back in 2015 is the one who found, apparently he says, the Internet Research Agency, Moscow's little troll factory thing. Wrote a big article about it. Really ahead of his time, focusing on these online propaganda things. In 2013, when I was sitting in prison, basically 100 years in prison, and under a gag order, because I kept talking about these companies to reporters like Michael Hastings over the phone, as the DOJ cited in its gag order hearing, and because I was writing articles, including one for The Guardian that was, quote, critical of the government, unquote, I was put under a gag order. And that is when Adrian Chin decided that he had free reign to write just whatever he wanted about me. And there was a little bit he wanted to write about me. Adrian Chin wrote about 5 or 6 articles about me altogether in that period, between mid-2011 and early or mid-2013. Thereafter, he's tweeted about me quite a bit since then. And since then, will not even mention my name or reply to me. And there's a reason for that.
Are you still actively on Twitter?
There's a reason for that.
I play it.
And let's play that. Let's look at the reason. Because I had this recording is the main reason. Let's put over here.
Based on the several articles you've written about me and our cartel, do you think a reasonable person would conclude?
This is 2012. This is March 2012, a few days after I was raided by the FBI.
Hey, where are you going? I'll miss you.
And if there was anybody I could point to and blame and say, this is what made it harder for me to get across to the public and to the press, what was happening to me and my family at that time, why we were being raided, what they were after, why they started looking at me to begin with, and what was at stake, the person who did the most to occlude that, the most disservice, not just to me, but to the public, and who would actively, well after I was charged, 100 years worth of prison time, would continue to dissuade people from contributing to our legal defense fund. That person is Adrian Chin, and the person who works closest with him and who allowed the article in 2013 that we'll get into in a second, that's John Cook, first editor of the Intercept.
Those articles.
This is 2012. I'm talking to him about a couple of articles that Doc had written about me, including a couple he had written that seemed to imply that there was something off about the anonymous cartel operation in Mexico that I was widely associated with because I was helping the non-Veracruz guys talk to the U.S. press. It was a story that came out of a non-Veracruz, came out of an entirely different server than the ones I worked on, was in the press before I ever commented upon it, and which I actively sent reporters to speak to these other guys, the people who were close to the situation, over and over again, including the New York Times. There's no whole other story about there. It was pretty clear, first of all, that there was something to this. There was a number of journalists in the U.S. in particular who were suspicious about the story, which was that someone close to anonymous participants in Mexico had been kidnapped by Zetas, something that happened quite routinely back then, and held for ransom. Again, routine. People like Adrian Chin, and then later someone at the Atlantic who listened to Adrian Chin and cited him, they became suspicious supposedly because they couldn't verify that a police report had been submitted in Mexico to the Mexican police over this kidnapping.
Play the corn.
I don't know if that's something I should even explain further, why that's crazy. You want to explain?
I also think his writing sucks ass in general.
Well, we'll get to that.
I mean, but how someone gets hired even by, I mean, I'm not a journalist, but
you could be, and so could he. So could Louis.
I do feel like other journalists should hold their colleagues accountable if their writing, 1, sucks, 2 is wrong or not true.
You might think that. So the reason that Chin and them were off base in this decision to start to imply that this was A, being made up, and that B, somehow I had made up this whole situation in Mexico involving like real people that have been in touch with the press, that I had committed what we call a false flag now. So Adrian Chin's eventual theory that I did a false flag attack with a fake kidnapping, an international incident that I manufactured myself, was that the supposed family of the person kidnapped did not go to the Mexican police as far as he could tell. You don't go to the Mexican police about much. You certainly don't go to kidnappings when someone's kidnapped by a cartel. And as it turned out, what happened with this guy is he was a minor drug dealer himself. He was a friend of some guy in a non-Veracruz or Ibero-America, some of the non-factions down there. And they went off on this campaign. Then they decided to stop it after all this criticism. Then I weighed in saying, I think you guys should go ahead. It's your country. Then press started talking to me about it. I sort of relayed stuff from them and then sent the press to them, blah, blah, blah. Adrian Chin knows all of that for a fact. But nonetheless, in 2011, Gawker, under I don't know whose editorship, made me one of its 2011 horrible Gawker characters of the year. And it was an article Hamilton Nolan wrote. And in that article, he says that Barrett Brown cooked up a fake drug war. Now, at the time, what I was actually doing was documenting and researching with this crowdsourced research group, Project PM. A lot of volunteers who themselves were risking a lot by looking into these companies. We were trying to bring attention to people like Peter Thiel and the dangers they presented, and the continued dangers they presented, and the danger presented by the fact that the press was having some attention span problems. After all the hacks and all the cinematic shit wore off, and there were still emails and documents and programs showing surveillance was a problem, showing that data mining was a problem, showing that online propaganda methodologies that no one really understands is a problem. Made it a lot harder when a lot of the press was reading Gawker articles claiming that I was some kind of Cagliostro fucking character or whatever. Made it harder with those 5 or 6 articles you can see if you look up Barrett Brown on Gawker, which still has his archives up, and scroll through and see all these deranged, crazy fucking articles already by Adrian Chin saying, Fameball Barrett Brown, face of anonymous Barrett Brown. And then later, call me the self-proclaimed face of anonymous.
He's the one with the shoe on his head.
He is. He's the one with the shoe on his head. So this is Adrian Chin, by this 2012.
You're saying that I made the thing up? Or do you think it's clear that you're not
Let me
saying
just pull back. Let me pull. There we go. There we go. Sorry for the long intro. Takes a lot of explaining.
Based on the several articles you've written about me and Al Cartel, do you think a reasonable person would conclude from those articles that you're saying that I made the thing up? Or do you think it's clear that you're not saying that?
I don't know if you made it up. Never came from out of that.
So you don't think that people reading like a reasonable person reading that would conclude that I made up the whole thing?
I don't.
Sorry, what?
Not saying that you made it up, but
Okay, because Gawker, making one of their 2011 people of the year, says,
If you could hear that squeaking sound a minute ago, that was Adrian Chin saying, I'm not saying he made it up, which is going to become important in a little bit.
cooked up a fake war against Mexican drug cartels, and that's obviously based on your reporting because it links straight to one of the articles. So the people at Gawker who are also writing there seem to conclude from what you've written that I made it up, and other people reading what you've written seem to also think you're saying I made it up. Now, if you don't believe that should happen, that's fine. I don't think you know enough about the timeline to make that suggestion, but again, that's your right. But to the extent that you're implying by referring to the bullshit operation and all that stuff, as you've done several times, this particular piece, basically anonymous fleas north, blah blah. I think it's pretty. I think not to say nothing of the picture you guys keep using, which is ridiculous, and you know it. I think that. No, leave the picture up. I think it's fantastic. It's in full Gawker form. But look, I think that you're leading people to believe wrongly that I made this thing up. And I think that's evident because Gawker itself, the publication, links to your articles and says Barrett cooked up a fake drug war. Do you think that's a reasonable conclusion for me to make? Well, is Gawker going to address this thing? It's kind of a problem for me. I just got read by the FBI 2 days ago. I've got you guys, again, constantly implying that I made up this fucking thing. No one in Mexico feels that way.
I did not say my post, you made it up.
Will you please clarify your latest thing and say you're not saying?
He says, and it's true. What he's saying here is true. He did not say in that post he originally wrote in 2011 that I made it up. He just said it was bullshit and all that and some other things, which is why I was upset at the time that Hamilton Nolan had written this huge Gawker year-end feature linking to his article and saying I did make it up, saying I cooked up a fake drug war. I was asking Jen, hey, if your coworker here, your colleague, is using your article to say as evidence that I made up a drug war, that I pulled off this false flag attack, I think it might be your responsibility to clarify it, because either someone, a reasonable person, assuming assuredly this fellow Gawker writer is a reasonable person, otherwise wouldn't be writing a Gawker. Hamilton Nolan has since gone to write Splinter. He's also starting a union for journalists, I'm sure will be great. That it is your responsibility to maybe clarify that, because again, it's either people are honestly reading it that way, that I made it up, or they're dishonestly doing it and they're hiding behind you and you're hiding behind your squeaky voice, and that's a problem. That was my argument back then. Little did I know that it was going to get much worse a year later. But let's say this thing.
Saying that I made it up because the fact of the matter is that, again, Gawker itself is linking to your work and saying in that little hyperlink that Barrett Brown made up this thing. And they're using your article as evidence by linking to it, sufficient enough to make me one of 2011's most loathsome Gawker characters of the year, which is fantastic. I mean, do you understand what my aggravation is here?
I mean, yes, but I also stand by the fact that I thought that was a bullshit operation. You know, I don't think that you were the person who initially made it up, no, but I think that you both worked hard.
Do you think I lied about anything?
That's again, it's a case the first one was an error or misspeaking, which happens a lot in politics and among cowards. First time he said, I don't think you made it up, could have been whatever. Here he's again saying, I don't think you're the one who originally made it up. Maybe you believe it, which is good enough for me. Fuck, I don't really didn't have to believe.
Clearly no one else had put him on the spot before.
I don't think,
and continues not to, which is strange.
You might have believed it. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can tell you it's not bullshit. I mean, there's obviously a lot of stuff you don't know about this. And this is something it's obviously complicated to follow because there's a lot of,
That might be a different
information on
story.
that.
I both tried.
Oh, I mean, that's fine. You don't have to believe it. I mean, it's
I tried.
right.
Tried to.
Okay. My concern is that you guys that Gawker has claimed that I made it up. You're here telling me you don't think you made it up, but they're relying on your reporting to make that assertion about me. And I tweeted several times about that. I'm sure you guys saw it. That I didn't think that was a proper interpretation of events, in so much as I wasn't involved in this thing until it was already a huge story.
You have a problem with the told, okay, I didn't write.
No, I do promise something you write, because what you write is being linked to by your own publication as evidence of something that is not the case, or that you're not willing to stand by. They're saying, I made it up. You, the person who reported on this and whose articles are being linked to in that article saying I made it up, are telling me you don't think I made it up. And I think Gawker should clarify that. You think that's reasonable or not?
So what do you want? You want me to put an update?
Wishy-washy.
I was right there.
You don't have to say that, but I'd like
He asked me, you want me to put an update saying you didn't make it up? No, the name for that wouldn't be an update. That would be a
Correction.
Although not really, because his article didn't even say that at the time. Really, the best thing would be for a correction would be on the Hamilton Nolan article, or an apology even. That article by that point had been up for several months. The one I'm referring to had been up since late. I think it had late 2011. This is early 2012. That couple days after the March FBI raid. Anyway, go ahead and push play.
If you think I made it up, I need you to say so directly. If you don't think I made it up, I'd like you to please clarify that. Because you're writing this bullshit thing like that, there's no other way to interpret that really, except for that I'm making it up. Especially when Gawker itself is linking those articles and saying I made it up outright. Do what?
Oh, you're not
He was realizing that while I'm talking to him, I'm also on a video conference thing called Tiny Chat that we used to use back in the day. I was quite famous. We rated on Tiny Chat.
Tiny Tat.
Tiny Chat. Tiny Chat.
You never mess up words, ever.
I
That's
do.
why
I do
these
sometimes.
moments make me feel happy.
It's not really a word.
No, it's cute. It's
words.
Tiny Tat.
I was arrested on Tiny Chat years later, months later. Yeah, I wanted to witness. And, he saw, like, he's got some witnesses. We didn't realize that I was also recording the call, which I tended to do at that point. As I gradually learned that a lot of people who don't seem trustworthy aren't trustworthy. And a lot of people who do seem trustworthy are also not trustworthy. And et cetera. Actually, I should note, the Mexican press itself, as far as I know, never... there was nothing about this that struck them as hard to believe. If you've never have no connection to Mexican culture, have no understanding of Mexican politics and the scene in Mexico at that time with the cartels, then some of this may seem odd. If you're not familiar with Anonymous and some of the very unusual, surreal things that Anonymous gets into, it might seem odd as well. But shouldn't have been covering Anonymous by that point for over a year, largely by coming to me originally for information. Adrian Chin was among the number of people that I provided warnings to regarding these companies. Romas Coin, Palantir's ongoing stuff. Let's go ahead and press play again.
Listen.
But he wasn't interested.
Yeah, does that surprise you? I know it's
Interested in
all the time. Okay. But anyway, just do what you want. I just wanted to just let you know how I feel about that. I really appreciate, I don't know what you think of me, and I'm sure there's obviously legitimate criticisms of me. Let's stick to legitimate criticisms, or stand by them if you're going to make them, by proxy. But the fact is that there's someone else in Gawker. Maybe I should talk to her too.
I thought Hamilton Owen was a female.
Never mind. But anyway, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. What? All right, bye.
No,
What a wishy-washy punk.
Yes, that's a good. That's
Yeah, what a well,
congratulations. So
thank you for playing that.
man right there, that fellow you just
obsessed
heard
with
from.
it.
That fellow has since gone on to write for The Nation. He wrote a review, Attacking Anonymous, or a book review of Gabriella Coleman's book on Anonymous that has me in it and has Jake Davis and Hector Monsabu and all that. But we'll get to that in a second. Wrote for the New York Times as a contributor. Wrote for the New Yorker as a staff writer. And you're probably wondering, well, I mean, that's something that New York Times and his old editors and all that, and these other publications. That concerns them, not the Intercept, right? Wrong, dead wrong. Sorry, dog, I didn't mean to surprise you. Sorry, I just frightened my dog for comedic effect. The problem is that a year after this, about a year and a half after this, actually, when I was sitting under that gag order, basically 100 years in prison, and there was a fundraiser being held for Jeremy Hammond and I, legal fundraiser to raise the funds that we needed to pay for our lawyers involved in these very complex cases with precedents. My case in particular involved originally linking charges, charges for linking to hacked data. Later on, I pled to accessory after the fact for calling up Stratfor after this hack of Stratfor that was orchestrated and overseen by the FBI via Sabu, its turned informant. Calling the company and offering to redact sensitive information that could get somebody killed or hurt, one of their sources abroad in authoritarian countries, for instance. And that's what I went down for vis-a-vis Stratfor. That's what I got the $800,000 restitution judgment. That's why later on when the Intercept, they received these subpoenas from the DOJ when I got out of prison. That was what that was about, because I had a restitution thing, so they could ask for all our communications and also ask for all financial records so that they could figure out how much money I was going to have to pay, or was going to be paid directly to Stratfor from the columns I would continue to write for him. A lot of stake in this case, not just me, not just my mother, who was also charged in this case and facing charges at this time, but a lot of stake for journalists and researchers, which is why I held out and did not accept their first offer of me. Actually, their second offer. The first offer was that I cooperate and start for any plea agreement. We turned that down, obviously. The second one was that I plead to one linking charge out of the 11. And rather than facing, still several decades, most likely I would just face 2 or 3 years and be almost done. We turned that down because had I pled to that, there would be a precedent established. And anyone else, whether it be Adrian Chen or some real human being, if they were to link to something in the process of doing research journalism, they could also be targeted by the FBI, assuming the FBI didn't like them, which happens sometimes. Now, in the article that Chen wrote in 2013, he expands upon his original claim that Alcatel is bullshit and actually says that I made it up. He says I made up a drug war for attention in this 2013 article. Then he says something like, oh, Barrett Brown had a book deal with Greg Hausch, the other anonymous guy, and it should be an interesting project if Barrett gets out this century, and if he ever gets back the documents taken from the FBI when they took his laptop. But I did get out. And he attacks Project PM. The other thing listed on my search warrant, where we compiled the project that compiled all this information about Romas Coin, Palantir, persona management, all of these things that would come up again and again in the U.S. election, as we're finding out now, thanks to whistleblowers like Christopher Wiley in 2018, who went to the British Parliament, talked about Cambridge Analytica's work with Cambridge, with Archimedes and Palantir. Archimedes was involved in Romas Coin, which is a very similar operation to the one that he did with Cambridge Analytica. Palantir was also involved in that effort. Cambridge Analytica and Archimedes shared a number of executive personnel. These are all things that could have been prevented. And had say people at Gawker spent less time writing articles that don't mention at all what my work is and that I'm a journalist and what we're researching and all that, and not attack Project PM all over and over again, maybe Peter Thiel would not have felt so emboldened to sue Gawker and shut it down, leading Adrian Chen and John Cook to have to find new jobs, which they did, because there's no justice. Found very nice jobs. John Cook was Adrian Chen's editor. He wrote this article in 2013 about a fellow journalist under a gag order and accused him of making up a drug war in Mexico and linking back to an article that had no evidence of that, and having admitted on the recording you just heard that he didn't believe anything of the sort. John Cook will let that happen. That's not even the worst thing. It's pretty scummy, but the worst thing that happened with those two, and with other people at Gawker, happened in 2011. It was revealed in 2014 based on discovery files from Jeremy Hammond's case, which is going on along with my case at the same time. In late 2011, Adrian Chen, who, along with John Cook, had written a lot of articles together about Anonymous, and both had approached me a number of times for information in the past number of months. They were both, that was their beat, those two. Adrian Chen, over a 2-week period, tried to convince Sabu, Hector Monsegur, and the rest of the Lulzsec gang to sell Gawker the emails that he believed they had stolen from another news outlet. To sweeten the deal, he also offered him the use of Gawker's servers. He offered this to Lulzsec. Lulzsec was also mentioned on my search warrant. When they seemed to balk at it, when they're like, we don't know, he said, I can't believe you guys would, you guys could be the group that took down Rupert Murdoch. It was a News Corp property, News of the World, that they had hacked the emails from. I can't believe you guys would turn that down. I can't believe your crew would turn that down. And Chen didn't realize that these emails didn't exist. They were fucking with them. Adrian Chen has been a figure that of great, he attracts great animosity due to just something clearly being wrong with him. Particularly those of us who dealt with him over and over again came to just despise the guy. If you go back to 2011, you'll find me saying stuff like, Anonymous does not attack news outlets except for Gawker. Now, the FBI knows about this. They knew about it exactly when it happened, because at the time, the FBI had given Sabu, Hector Monsegur, an FBI computer, a laptop to do everything with, everything he was doing. They knew about it in real time. They knew it over that 2-week period. The DOJ knew it. It was in Hammond's discovery files. And after 2014, when Andrew Blake and Dan Stuckey put out an article on this whole incident, with the transcripts of Adrian Chin doing this in the Daily Dot. I got a copy of it. I knew about it. I got a copy in prison. Tell you who else knew about it because he was asked for comment. It was John Cook, who's quoted in that article. You can, if you look it up, it's just Google Adrian Chin Sabu. You'll see a link to it. I've posted a bunch on Twitter in the last few months, frankly. Sent it along to past editors of the New Yorker and the Nation, asking them to review his work. There's also been another number of other things involving Adrian Chin that he did. Fabricating stuff, blatantly fabricating stuff. Doing so, oddly enough, in defense of H.B. Gary in one case, in his article for the Nation. We'll get to that another time. This is really not just about Chin here today. But John Cook knew about it. He knew about it before my sentencing. So John Cook knew when after he was contacted, and I guarantee you he knew in 2011 too, but we can prove he knew in 2014, before my sentencing, that Adrian Chin had tried to buy stolen emails from the exact same FBI informant hacker that came up in my case and Jeremy Hammond's case, and also approached WikiLeaks, Hector Monsegur. And he knew that I was about to be sentenced for accessory after the fact regarding these same hackers. Anti-Sec, Lil-Sec, Jeremy Hammond, the actual guy, and Hector Monsegur, the FBI turncoat, for calling Stratfor up after the hack to try to redact emails that Sabu and them were at that point talking about just dumping online, which I thought was dangerous and not in the best interest of anyone. And so for calling Stratfor, I got $800,000 restitution charge and additional time in prison on top of my interference with the search warrant for hiding my laptops from the scummy FBI, who I knew to be targeting journalists and activists and letting certain other people go for crimes, much more actual and real than some of ours, and a threatening federal agent, which I'm glad I did. Didn't do it under the statute, but I did threaten to investigate him because of some of the things that they were letting others get away with, H.B. Gary and Aaron Barr and all that, digging into the children of activists and all that. Anywho, John Cook knew, slipped his mind. He was editor of the Intercept. Intercept's covering my case. I'm about to be sentenced. The probation officer was asking, they were saying I should have gotten about 17 years and then 11 years would thus be a good compromise. John Cook did not stand up and say, hey, Chin, you and I should probably make something public about this because Barrett Brown's being targeted for his journalistic practices and he's fighting on behalf of journalism. He's sitting here and risking a lot more prison time so that he won't have to plead to this bullshit, linking charge thing, one count of it. And so that being the case, we should do that. Meanwhile, Quinn Norton from Wired, she's sitting there in court and she's testifying that she linked to the exact same document that Barrett Brown's still being punished for linking to even after the charges were dropped because of this complicated federal mechanism called relevant conduct. She's sitting there and there's a bench conference and the DOJ is now threatening to prosecute her because she's come forward. Maybe we should man up and explain that we did something, or you did something, and I was aware of it because I was definitely your partner there. I'm definitely aware of it now in 2014 because I've been asked about this other incident and the fact that the DOJ and FBI didn't prosecute it. Because that's also important. The FBI picking and choosing, going after dissidents and letting someone like Adrian Chin go unscathed, so long as he writes lots of negative articles about these activists, as he did over and over again. And that's not what John Cook did, and he was the first editor of the Intercept. I don't know how the fuck that happened. Even if without that incident, I just don't understand what it was that John Cook's, what he could point to and say, hey, you need to make me the editor of this really, this new kind of totally, idealized news outlet, because I was a gawker for a long time.
And
I don't know.
They're still hiding.
Mm-hmm.
After all these years. How many years has it been?
A lot.
And where's everyone else on this?
They're around. Here's the other thing that makes this really superbly relevant regarding the Intercept right now. Most people at the Intercept know this because I sent them a long email. Part of it's documented in that article I put out with all the other leaks on the Intercept closing the Snowden archive. I said this to him a couple weeks ago. little jokey email, kind of making fun of the CEO there and explaining some things about why I didn't think it was a good idea to have Glenn Greenwald and Betsy Reed deciding to close that the Snowden archive is not worth pursuing. Given my experiences and trying to get them to acknowledge very obvious things about that same industry, the same intelligence contracting sector. Booz Allen Hamilton, the same company it all came from. It's one of the firms I was trying to get people interested in back in 2011. That I called up the vice presidents and recorded it and put it on YouTube. If you Google YouTube or YouTube, that's a verb. William Wansley, you'll see a great one where I wake him up early on in the morning and ask him why Aaron Barr was shipped over to Booz Allen headquarters in late 2010 to have a meeting with William Wansley about Anonymous and WikiLeaks. They know all that stuff, and they also know that right now Chelsea Manning is once again sitting in prison after having already gone through this ordeal where she's sentenced to decades in prison, and then Obama commutes her sentence and she gets out. She gets a few years out here trying to readjust, and then she's right back in prison again. And that first term involved a lot of solitary confinement. It was done as torture. If anything can happen to you in the Bureau of Prisons. I'm understanding she's now in the regular federal prisons, not the military one this time. She's the kind of ones I was in. Anything can happen. And that's where she is again. And Assange, meanwhile, I don't really personally have a lot of, I don't really care much about his well-being beyond a certain point, but he is being prosecuted under things that, first of all, if you compare them to what John Cook knows about and what Adrian Chen did, and probably whatever editor of Gawker was there that authorized it, because Adrian Chen does say, and of course it wouldn't make sense otherwise, that he had gotten approval from the higher ups at Gawker. And of course, there's no point in Adrian Chen offering Gawker's money to Gawker servers if he doesn't have permission. That's one of the reasons why the other ones, Gawker did not reply to comment in 2014 when that article came out about that incident. Because what are you going to say? Yeah, we did that shit. Tried to buy stuff from these hackers, and oops, we're going to try to get FBI informant, but didn't think anybody would know. Thought it was a good idea at the time. We got away with all kinds of stuff at Gawker. We kept accusing this one journalist who was being pursued by the FBI, kept calling him a liar and a fraud in the run-up to his arrest. And then after he was arrested, we did it again. So we figured we'd get away with this too. Not much you can say to that. They all know that there's a contrast here, that there is a major piece of information that needs to be in the public eye, needs to be part of this discussion about journalism and whistleblowing and the law and the DOJ and how it operates. They all know it. The editors of the New Yorker know it. William Davidson, the managing editor over there, I've had several conversations with him by email over the last month about Adrian Chen and about this element to it. He said, we have
back?
maybe. No, of course he didn't call me back. He emailed me back this morning saying, we'll look into it. Thanks for letting our fact checker. I'll let our fact checkers know. Thanks for letting us know. I told him that he had said originally that actually that's all interesting, but I had sent him 15 pages of analysis and quotes and recording showing Adrian Chen had fabricated stuff over and over again, including public lies he told while he was at the New Yorker, but not in the New Yorker. So I haven't gone through his New Yorker articles yet, but I will. And he had said, if you found an error or anything that Chen wrote for us, let me know. But I can't vouch for stuff he wrote for publications, which of course was not what I was asking him to do. I was asking him to conduct a review of all of Chen's articles because he had done things regarding sources that are not commonly done and are unethical. And I just happen to know two of those occasions in which he did that because I just happen to know two women actually, who are among almost certainly many that he dealt with in an unethical fashion, and in one case, a threatening fashion. I just happen to know them through activism. There's others involving this Reddit thing. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that they're aware of. But they don't want to do an internal review because that opens up a whole can of worms and it ultimately makes the magazine look bad. And so as with all these other publications, New York Times, all that I've asked for corrections or to do reviews or blah, blah, they're going to hold out as long as they can until it gets to a point where holding out no longer makes sense. It's a hard point to get to, but I've got plenty of time to do it. I've got years and years. And it's important because journalism is important and information is important, and it's important that people understand what careerism does to journalism, especially when journalism is occurring, coinciding with the information age, and there's companies working with the U.S. government and other governments abroad whose specialty is in manipulating information, using information, striking fundamentally at the information that we require as a citizen. These people all know this. If they didn't know it before, they know it now. That was the point of me emailing them publicly and privately, informing them these things. They know how this relates to the WikiLeaks and Chelsea Manning case. But they are careerists. They are not moral people. They are not interested in any of this. So that's John Cook. That's the kind of stuff that he did at the Intercept. There's a lot more to that story. No point in telling it now. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and burn this National Magazine Award while I'm nice and worked up. This is the first National Magazine Award that the Intercept received. They got it because I wrote columns from the SHU while I was locked up in the SHU over Project PM, over H.B. Gary, all the things that targeted co-founder Glenn Greenwald, who after about a year, a little over a year after I was raided by the FBI over H.B. Gary and In-Game Systems, two of the firms that came after him, and Project PM, the place in which we compiled it, did finally write about my case. Took a lot of lobbying. I had to send Kevin Gallagher out, the head of our legal defense deal, and talk to him along with Splendid Spoon, Lauren Despiza, those two activists, to explain to him the situation, and finally he wrote about it when I was on the upswing. At that point, The Nation and other deals, Vice, number of outlets had already started writing about how, oh look, he discovered these things, he researched them, he led this crowdsourced research effort, and spent a lot of, was obviously very dedicated to it, and this is obviously why he's in prison. Michael Hastings had done his part. But I never found Greenwald to be that interested in anything that could be directly connected back to his interests, ideological or personal. That's what I found. I haven't found the rest of the editors there, higher ups, to be that moral or competent or they're billing themselves. They have a party tonight, 5-year anniversary party. Celebrating 5 years of adversarial and fearless journalism. I have not found that much to be the case about higher ups there. There's a lot of great journalists. There are actually a few editors, people there at the high position now who've been brought on. A couple of them are actually at that thing tonight who are worthy of respect. But journalism is rarely the industry in which people are burning their bridges. There's too few jobs, too few positions. That makes it nice that I have a book deal. So I don't have to do it anymore. I don't have to deal with those people anymore. And there's always carpentry. I can always learn carpentry. So here's the National Magazine Award. Let's get some, I need lighter fluid. Probably need to bust open one of these fucking lighters. Let me just stick this right here. A good place to keep it. A fireplace. Nothing will happen to it there.
Just use one of the big ones.
Yeah. So one of these plastic lighters that the casing, they're a little easy to break.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna fuck with that, but I'm not sure if that. Maybe it's a
Just
good
light
idea.
it on.
Let's see how it lights. Let's bring old Betsy over here. Betsy's the name of my laptop. I just made up. Let's keep it traditional. Okay. Reasonable. Reasonable advice.
Mm-hmm. Perfect, you have the quote right there.
Oh, you know what I forgot to mention? Fuck. Back in early 2011, when we were doing Op Manning, we were trying to bring attention to Chelsea Manning's first solitary confinement and torture. Adrian Chen approached me on GChat and, said, oh, you guys are, going to be calling the, let me read it out loud. Let me just read the whole thing rather than misquoting. I want to make sure I say exactly what Adrian Chen told me. And luckily, the FBI did a great job of collating all of my communications over that time, so that not only do I have them via Gmail, the DOJ itself has put their stamp of authority, of legitimacy on these documents. That's what Adrian Chen told me and didn't get indicted for. Or one of those things he didn't get indicted for. And the funny thing is, not long after that incident, where he tried to buy those stolen emails from the FBI agent, his articles before that, his articles early on, if you see his first article on HB Gary, were not anti-anonymous to an extent, but suddenly they take a very negative tone. And that could be explainable by him being fucked around with by Non, like, being told, hey, put a tutu on and put a shoe on your head and take a picture and we'll see these documents. Something that actually happened. Could be explained by a lot of other things, his emotional, whatever. It could also be explained in the same way you'd explain him not being indicted in the first place, which is that there was something happened, maybe. And maybe in exchange for his reliability, maybe he was given a tip about Internet Research Agency rather than finding himself. And I say that because I tried to get Adrian Chen interested in these issues for about a year. And he was mostly interested in me.
Yeah.
And then I get out of prison, and it turns out he's the expert on internet propaganda. And suddenly I'm not. Weird. Adrian Chen, let's see here. Manning, that's what it is. Let's just search these. Let me just pull this. You guys can't see it on the phone. Oh, yeah, you can. I can pull this camera around this side here. That way you guys can see as well. Let me. Where is that? Adrian Chen, blah, blah, blah. Let me do this too. Turn this around. Where's oh, this is me fucking with the New Yorker. Well, we need maybe this. Let's see. Oh, okay, here we go. Where's this? So we took out the yellow. Oh, it still says it. Oh, here we go. Here's Adrian Chen saying, he's coming to me about the anonymous operation for Manning. Are they actually going to do ruin life tactics on Manning's guards? And I say, to an extent. You know that Lindy England or whatever? He goes, yeah. He spells yeah, Y-E-A, which I fucking hate. Press totally covered her a whole bunch and ruined her life more in doing so. We're going to do that same thing. Like, how the press calls people up? Yeah. We call people up for the same reason, except we're calling from a huge blob of eccentric futurists with varying levels of station society. And we're just looking for information. So we're kind of like the press. But what we do is illegal because it has to be. What I mean is that it becomes illegal because the DOJ chooses to consider it illegal. I didn't know to what extent that was true, and that this guy I'm talking to here is going to get away with all kinds of shit. Wow, 40 U.S. homes, for instance, are being raided in January 2011 over the DDoS attacks on Visa and MasterCard that took down their corporate websites for like a few seconds. Contrast to the Chen. And here's Chen saying, I mean, it wouldn't get as great an impact if you just called them up. I think putting it on Pirate Pad is what gets people. Just like what happens to me at 4chan. No one would have given a shit if I just got some prank calls. But it was the act of doxing. One of the things I was charged with early on was conspiracy to make public restricted information on federal officials. And I always wondered for a while until I got back these old email correspondence, which I just did the last couple of months doing the research for the book. Because I didn't have access to my discovery while I was in prison, and then for a long time thereafter, and that's a feature, not a bug, as far as the DOJ is concerned. They know what's in here. They also know that that the forensics still. I was charged with conspiracy to make public information on federal officials, and the conspiracy, the act that made it a conspiracy legally, according to them, was when I asked asked somebody to do a Google search on a federal person. Now, as we explained in as our great lawyers did in the motion to dismiss that charge, just like the other charges, that didn't make sense. Restricted information, by definition, can't be on Google. That then is public information already. Nonetheless, I was charged with it, and they dropped the charge eventually. But you know who was never charged with that? Adrian Chen. And even if you say, you know what, he's not really conspiring, he's just trying to get you to do it. He's trying to put a key in your back, as we say in prison. That's fine as a legal argument. It's not a very good argument for a journalist who now writes for the New York Times and who the New Yorker won't review his work, and who John Cook edited for a long time and worked with around that same time as he was doing both of those things that would be illegal if I had done them. And they later became the first editor of the Intercept for however that's chosen. You could say that. I mean, you could say that about this situation, but it'd be hard to say it about the thing where he, over a 2-week period, is offering to engage in this conspiracy with LulzSec to have them sell Gawker, stolen emails, stolen not from the Pentagon, not from a military contractor that's conducting illegal operations against the press and against the children of labor leaders and activists, as H.B. Gary and Team Themis was. But rather because Gawker needs stories. I was a good Gawker story for a long time. They got a whole lot out of me. Bunch of articles worth. I just want to return the favor. So, for all of its sins, for those things they have done and left undone, I hereby confine the Intercept's first National Magazine Award, my National Magazine Award, to the Flames. I think they've gotten a couple since then, or maybe one. I don't see them getting that many more. They're few and far between. Oh, let me just roll over here. See if I can do this without stretching too much. There it goes. There it goes. Once you look at that, it's catching very nicely. Oh no! The Intercepts! Magazine Award! Hooray! I did a lot more than that. Ash to ashes, dust to dust. The other thing is that the National Magazine of Editors, or the National Association of Editors, didn't have the right to confer me an award because I should be giving the awards out. They don't need to be judging my work. I judge it profound. What the flu's out there? Oh shit! Look at this. I'm a genius, so yeah. But
All right, let's have some wine.
I've got other awards anyway. Do what?
Let's have some wine.
Yeah, put me a glass in, please.
Let's...
There it goes.
Thanks for coming.
It's a quick way to end.
Give me some more. That burned quick. It's gone. Come here, come here. Come here.
No, go daddy. Go daddy.
Somebody's gonna take responsibility within the press at some point. It's gonna be somebody at the Intercept, somebody at the New Yorker. Somebody has to write an article explaining that yes,
Go daddy.
this is something that should never have happened. These people should never have been in the press. John Cook should not have just gotten a new job at Business Insider. Adrian Shin should never have had a job in writing at all, ever.
And what John said right there.
Yes,
Might be cool.
yes.
Louis.
Probably backwards on here. I don't know what it's showing. I don't know. Because it's not like an industry. It's not a sinecure. It's not a fun careerist hipster enterprise. There's actual real lives at stake, and there's civics at stake. The point of journalism, again, is not to provide jobs for mediocre hipster scum.
I need help. Unless you want to drink my girly wine.
No, I definitely don't.
Oh, you didn't get my girly wine.
Yeah, dude, pick up the scuttle. It's in that bag.
Oh. Thanks. Nice hybrid.
There it is.
Can you open it?
Yes. But yeah, something got to be done about that. And so,
Ooh.
That's fucking extra.
Sorry, that over.
If you have any interest in making sure that people like Chelsea Manning, that their actions that they're being prosecuted for are viewed in the proper context, which is that of a DOJ and FBI that chooses to come after some journalists than others and some whistleblowers than others, and chooses to let those who go after those same whistleblowers and journalists commit indefensible crimes with no real civic purpose, then go tell John Cook to fess up. Go tell him to talk. Go tell Adrian Chin. Adrian Chin's not going to reply to you. He's been doing a great job hiding. For someone who wrote a lot of articles about me back in the day, he's certainly...
He's on social media a lot. He has a
He
blog.
is. He writes a lot of great tweets about
Wait, where's my girl?
about poetry. He's written essays. One of his tweets from a few months ago. I read this tweet. I'm like, Jesus Christ, how? And it was like, I was reading an essay in which, fuck is her goddamn name? Arantharantu Roy compares Noam Chomsky favorably to a something beetle. I was like, shut the fuck up, dude. Just shut the fuck up. You gotta see it. It's really terrible. Some serious hipster shit. Anyway, that's about all for tonight. I think we've covered the aesthetics and the ethics of journalism and leaking and what's going on right now and why it is. If I've seemed a bit erratic, if I've seemed a bit nuttier than usual the last few months, it's because I'm in the course of researching, doing these last few chapters of my book, which is coming out next year. There's a bunch of stuff that I've learned that I was not aware of or forgotten or had not struck me at the time. A number of things I've seen in the coverage that immediately followed my arrest I was not aware of from people that I had thought highly of until I saw what they chose to do when it didn't look like I was going to be a cause celebre and it looked like I was just going down. And so it's made me a little bit maybe a little erratic, like I said. So I hope everyone will forgive me. Having said that, all of these people need to be destroyed. Slowly, surely, one by one. They have to be destroyed. And the best way to do that is through crowdsourced research under a protocol that I've spoken about a little bit. If you see a speech I gave at Niagara University last month and in Buffalo that same day. Find those on YouTube. We'll have some more written materials about that later. Also spoken about in these little videos I've done about Julian Assange's arrest in the last week or so. Well, the bottom line is that we have methods, just like Project PM used, that were so great, that were so clearly worthwhile. All these volunteers that came together to go into these things that the press just didn't feel the need to follow up on and couldn't. You know, in many cases, even if you're a great journalist, even if you're a great outlet, the writer-editor model from the 1600s in London that we've been using for 400 years needs to be updated. And we can easily do so now. And the methods by which we update it are pretty clear. Even the haphazard version of crowdsourcing that I oversaw at Project PM, or that you've seen a little bit more systematized with telecomics, groups that have followed these issues and presented the raw material and refined them into stuff to be used by their journalists. All the stuff that made the FBI come after me and even list Project PM in their first search warrant, knowing it didn't matter, knowing that, you know, when I was arrested and charged with identity theft and all kinds of bullshit, that it wouldn't be clear yet what this was about, even though they said what it was about. It was good enough that the FBI had to come stomp on it. And so if it's good enough for intelligence contracting, it's good enough for anything. And under a curated sense, using these protocols that we're designing and using, you know, stuff that other people could design as well, we can create volunteer, filtered, curated, crowdsourced research networks, even better than the ones that the FBI was all freaked out about back in 2011, 2012. We can make them available for free to journalists who want to improve what they're doing, who want to improve their end product, who want to make sure that they're accurate, make sure they're not hurting anybody unnecessarily, make sure they're not missing things that they could have easily been aware of had they used these things. and give them to them. Let them use it. There's people who want to do that, and there's a way to set it up such that it's not a time drain or a risk or anything like that on the journalist. And those who don't want it, those who say, no, we've got it all set already. I'm a journalist, and maybe it'd be a little embarrassing if I admitted that my editor and I can't solve it, can't figure out every single thing in the world on our own, even with the fact checkers' help. The New Yorker just recently learned how good their fact checkers are when I pointed out to them yesterday about the massive error in their article on Anonymous and me and the Tunisian Revolution. Those who say no, we don't need it, then we use these crowdsourced research networks to audit their past work, identify their errors, and then make those very, very public on a wiki, on a website, similar to Project PM. And then as time goes on, we bring this conversation to the fore. We make it harder to avoid. We popularize the idea. We get more successes with it, with these crowdsourced researchers also doing other things for the journalists who understand their use. And there's a lot who have already signed on to use them. A lot of great independent journalists who have written for major outlets, but are, when I say independent, I mean early adapters, actually want to do journalism, actually care about it. And if we do that right, we can solve a lot of problems. And that's what we'll be dedicated to. That's what I'll be dedicated to from now on and from here on out. Pursuance is the end of that. The process Congress, which I mentioned earlier, but we haven't announced yet, that'll also be heavily involved in that. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Sorry you weren't at the Intercept party, but either were we. We had fun tonight, didn't we? I think we did. I think we had a lot of fun. It was very cathartic.